How to find your style as a photographer is something that every photographer wants to find out sooner rather than later. It is almost like your identity as a photographer in some way, so much so that it is possible for your work to be recognised beforehand without actually having seen your name against it, just because your images can become so recognisable. But how do you actually get to that point of having found a style? I think there's a few different things that actually go into finding your own particular style of photography that over time people will start to recognise as yours. But ultimately, there is no right or wrong way to get to that point, and it could be down to experimentation with different techniques such as long exposures, playing with depth of field, or things like intentional camera movement, shooting different genres of photography such as landscapes, street, weddings, playing around with negative space and composition, and all of these different things. There's way too many to list out, but by experimenting with all of these and playing around with them and learning about them, over time you slowly start to refine your craft, and you realize the things that you enjoy, the things that work for you, and where your interests lie in photography. Do you want to know one of the most annoying things? Whenever I come out to do a photo walk like this, explore a little bit, I always forget one thing. And today I've forgotten the cable to plug my microphone into my camera. So I'm having to record all my audio separate and then sync it up later on. It's always something that I forget. Very frustrating. Lovely morning though. I'm trying to just find a little scene here. I don't know if it's going to work because the sun's directly behind, so I'm getting a lot of glare off the water. I've not got a polarizer with me. It's another thing I've forgotten. But I think there's something with this boat and the bridge. It's just nice to be out anyway, even if I don't get any nice photos. Something I need to do more of. When you first get into photography, it is all incredibly exciting. You get your first camera and you just want to go and take pictures of anything and everything that you possibly can without any particular thought behind it. You just want to go and shoot, whether that's pets or people or just things lying around about your house. When I first started, I remember taking pictures of shoelaces and messing around with apertures to figure out how depth of field work. And I just had a shoelace lying away from me on the floor, and I was just playing around with apertures and messing around with it and taking pictures of shoelaces. It's mad now when you think about it. Then you buy some new gear, maybe a nice prime lens to go along with the kit lens that you've been using as you've started to find your way around your camera, and you accumulate all of this new gear over time, and you start to think that all of this new gear is going to make you a better photographer. Spoiler alert though, that's not the case, unfortunately. It doesn't quite work like that, but it's fun. This early stage of photography is all about just trying to figure out what looks and feels right to you as a photographer, but it's also essential for the stages later on when you come on to slowly start to develop your own style of photography, because it's where you learn what works for you just through trial and error, through getting excited about it and wanting to learn new things all of the time. And that's the key thing, because it should be a phase that you look back on in a few years' time. Maybe you come across your very first images sat on a hard drive somewhere and you look back at them and you think to yourself, what the hell was I thinking? Why did I increase the saturation so much in the sky? Why did I shoot everything at f1.8? And these are the things that I'm going to come on to talk about a little bit later on as well. As you develop as a photographer and you learn new skills, you start to realize what looks good to you and what you enjoy shooting. And certain techniques that you've experimented with over the years will stick with you, and others will fall away because you're not necessarily as interested in it, and that's fine. But you will slowly start to find yourself gravitating to a certain style or type of photography, and that just comes with shooting more and finding out what resonates with you as a photographer. For me, my main inspiration when it came to finding a style of photography that I was interested in and enjoyed shooting the most was a photographer that I came across on Instagram called James Popsis. Now, James also has a brilliant YouTube channel. I love his work, so make sure you go and check it out. But he says that his photography is human nature in style, sort of finding human or man-made elements in nature. So it's sort of merging street photography with landscape photography, even though that's not actually the case. That's kind of what it is, but I think that's pretty much what inspires me the most as well. I love the whole story element of photography, where you see something and it just makes you ask questions about it, like, why is that there, what are they doing? That's the sort of photography that I'm into. It's sort of, I guess there's a kind of documentary element to it as well. That's what interests me. But don't feel like you have to narrow yourself down to a particular niche or genre like landscape or street photography. There can be elements of all of these that interest you that you bring to your own work.
Things like this is perfect for me. Now, it might not be the best example, but it's something that intrigues you and makes you ask questions, and it sort of tells a story, and that's the sort of photography that I'm into. So we've got this big red sign that says danger deep mud, but then the fence knocked down to it it's just knocked down, so people have walked straight through, just completely ignoring the sign. There's a gate that is sort of covered up with all of the overgrown grass and weeds. It's not a great image, but it's something that on a day like today, it just helps you think about things like that differently to how you might when you're in those amazing locations that you've been planning to go to for ages. So it's just a nice little scene. It tells a little bit of a story. I'll get an image. It's not the best image, but I'm out doing photography. That's what it's all about.
A huge element of being able to find your own style as a photographer is to be able to look back at your old work and realise just how far you've come and see the signs of growth you've had as a photographer. Like I said before, you should be able to look back and you should cringe at your work and think, what was I doing? And even though it might not seem like it at the time, because you just think that work looks genuinely awful compared to what it does now, that's actually a good thing, because it shows that you have developed as a photographer, you've learned new things, you've learned skills, and you've put all of those into practice to get to where you are today with an improved style of photography. Even if you can look back just a year or two and start to notice the flaws in your photography, you know that you are slowly starting to find your style as a photographer.
It is so nice around here. How did I not even know this was here? A nice little dam over there. Nice view down the river. I mean, again, it's not a great photography day. The lighting's not great. I'm not finding much to inspire me photography wise, but it's just nice to be out and explore new places. And that's not to say that on a nice day when we've got nice light, that I come back here and I will find something that inspires me. So yeah, it's definitely one for the list.
Overall, finding your style as a photographer isn't something that is going to happen overnight. It is a process of years and years and years, and just going out and shooting as many photos as you possibly can and figuring out the things that work for you, what you like, and just experimenting with different things. But you also need to be able to embrace that experimentation and not be scared to try new things, because our photography style is always going to be evolving. And that's the exciting thing about photography, because you're never going to have completed photography. There's always going to be something new to learn. So whether you have a set in stone style now that you absolutely love, that's not to say that in 6, 12 months time, or maybe 10 years time, you have other interests, because your interests outside of photography change. That can then change within photography, and that then affects how your photography looks. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. But other areas can influence your photography, and your tastes and style can change over time. That's pretty exciting. That's why photography is great. I love it. Yeah, that's enough for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I shall see you in the next video.